Hola!
Hi, everyone.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Beyond the Screen. Let's get real for real.
For real.
For real. Today we have guest Adrian Delgado. So we're just going to give it a minute or so for him to log on. And we're super excited. This is our fourth episode of Beyond the Screen.
Can you believe that?
I know. It seems like it's going so fast. This is a series that we put together for folks to still have access to the arts during the time that we are in quarantine. And we have invited a few of the artists that y'all have requested. So Adrian Delgado is one of those artists. We've worked with him in the past, so we have the pleasure of inviting him back. And he's logging on, so give us just 1 second. Hola!
Hey guys.
The man of the hour.
Hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. Awesome.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. I'm trying this new setup with my tripod.
Oh, nice. And we can see your work in the background. All perfect. Cool. Well, welcome, Adrian. Thank you so much for accepting the invitation to come on. We were just sharing with all of your followers and ours that the Beyond the Screen really came out of like a necessity to have access to the arts right now that everyone is in shelter in place, other than of course our essential workers, which we'll touch on because some of your subject matter is on some of our essential workers. The series came about from making sure that folks still have access to the arts during these times. So thank you so much for making that possible for our communities, your communities, all of our communities. So muchas gracias. And yes, welcome. To start, we just wanted to share that, we've known Adrian for, going on 6, maybe 7 years now.
Yeah,
it's been a long time. Yeah, right. Adrian, you've had 2 solo exhibits with us, we've shown your work several times, and you're amazing. So thank you so much for being on this journey with us and supporting us, and so that we can support each other. So thank you so much for being here. So Adrian, let's just start off by checking in with you. How are you doing during this time of quarantine? Are you creating anything during these times? ¿Cómo estás? How is your family?
Everything's really good. I feel like it's been a big change for me because I'm not used to being in the studio full time. Like I kind of have a schedule where I will work full time at the museum at SF MoMA, and then I make artwork around it. And I usually don't sleep. And now I've been sleeping a lot more, which is new to me. But I'm very lucky that I have a job that gives me a steady paycheck as I'm in quarantine. I feel like a lot of people don't have that, and I just need to acknowledge that I'm very privileged to have that. And mostly doing the work I do, that it gets me really sad. And I personally don't worry about myself. I'm more worried about the essential workers and the people that can't stay home and just get into their just be home. So I feel like that's been one of the things I've been thinking a lot. And I feel like looking at my work and seeing what I've been really thinking about lately, and having a lot of time just to think of what I'm making. It's been really new. Like I don't think I've ever not worked in about since I was 16. So what is that? 20 years? Less? 19 years? So it's been a really big change for me. And I see a lot of artists who can't make artwork. Maybe they just don't have the funds, or that they're just not used to making artwork under stress. Like I felt like, at least for me, I've always made artwork to escape, and I've always used it as a way to deal with sadness, or deal with just dealing with things. So it's really easy for me just to block it off, and I feel guilty that I'm like that, but I feel like that's just the way I am. So
yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I mean, yeah, that's something that's something that's come up for us as well, and especially around the guilt component, because folks cope in different ways with trauma, with situations, and all ways are valid, right? Like some of us go into extreme work mode, and then some of us go into recluse mode, or just taking time to be with ourselves and with our bodies and not do any work, right? And like everything in between. And you know, if your outlet is to like work and produce, like that's okay and good for you and good for us because then we get some more Adrian Delgado work. Um, you mentioned your job, and you know one of your fans and followers did want us to ask you about what is it like to be an art handler, and maybe you want to talk about what your journey, like what an art handler is and like what your responsibilities as an art handler are, but also like what is it like to be an art handler during the day and then have to go home and then like figure out time to like not handle other people's work but like handle your own work. um
Well, in a museum, working in a position where I see artwork every day, it's both inspiring and you also feel uninspired sometimes. Like I feel like it's a mixture of both. Because some days you look at art and it's amazing and you're able to like take it in and get inspired. And then some days you see artwork and you're just like, what is this doing here? This is horrible. You know, like why aren't I here? People like me, or you know, why does it feel like sometimes that the museum doesn't always represent everybody? You know, and I think about that a lot. And the reason why I am in there is so there is representation. You know, like I know that when I'm at work, I'm an art handler and I'm also an artist. But I feel like when I go there, I represent, you know, my culture and also just people who are usually not seen. And I mean that's one reason why I work at the museum is that I'm there and I feel like um, I'm very happy to be there. Like I feel like being in the scenario like that is something I've always dealt with, even within art school. Uh, I know I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about how it is to be a minority within those institutions and how sometimes you don't always feel like as if you're part of it. You feel like you're not in that world because you don't see yourself in those books, right? In the art history books, you feel like you're devalued in a way, and I feel like that's one reason why I'm really good friends with you guys because I feel like we're trying to show the value within these works, to show that there's more to Latino art than just Frida Kahlo and Sugar Skulls, no matter how much we do love them. Like, I sometimes feel like in order to be included in that world that we have to muddy our colors or abstract our images more. And I feel like one of the conversations I always seem to have with people in school was, how do you feel about being pigeonholed, or how do you feel about being a Latino artist, right? And do you want to be just a Latino artist, or do you want to be an artist, right? And how do you? And I sometimes feel like we have to be able to know everything, right? When I say that, I mean like you have to know exactly why that paintbrush is there, why that color is there, why is that image in that direction. And I feel like we have to always be thinking about things more. And I think maybe this is just a perspective. I don't think it's necessarily true for everybody, but I feel like it's something that a lot of us do think about.
yeah, no, thank you for sharing that. And do you find Adrian that like I don't know why this is resonating with me, right? The Selena Quintanilla movie, right, where she's like, I have to work harder as a Mexican American because I don't belong here, I don't belong there. That whole scene. You know, do you feel like as a Latino artist that you're expected to like going back into like these institutions, right? That where there maybe not be, or where there may not be a sense of belonging because of the history of these institutions and the representation. Do you feel like yeah, you're expected to know all of the formal as much, if not more, than your white counterparts and your white cohort, but also be able to like tackle the subject matter and keep it community, and like being stuck between these two worlds of like making it accessible to community, but also like being able to have these very formal and I guess elitist art conversations. Yeah, like do you find that that's a space that you kind of have to navigate?
I feel like I navigate it every day. I also has to acknowledge that there is that acknowledgement that there needs to be more diversity. Like there is that push for more change, but it's also just a start. You know, like I feel like until they have more than just one gallery space for Latino artists, I don't think it's going to be enough, or minority artists, or people who are, you know, queer or anything. Like, I feel like we're always put in boxes, and it's something that I battle with every day. Because, I mean, even within our own culture, like sometimes you don't speak Spanish and you're not Latino enough. Like, that's something we have to battle with. And
Yeah.
it's funny because Spanish isn't really from Mexico; it's from somewhere else. You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. No, absolutely, right? Like, como dice, una amiga dice, Spanish is just the first colonizer's tool. Uh, so, no, totally hear you. And thank you for sharing that. Like, as a Latino artist, I mean, your subject matter um, I guess it is very much about like Latinx or Latino identity, and that experience, whether that be undocumented workers, whether that be laborers, the unsung heroes of our communities, the essential workers, right? These folks who are out even during times of pandemic, making so that ensuring that we all have food. Like, um, do you mind talking about like why this subject matter, how you came to work around this subject matter?
Well, a lot of my subject matter comes from me going to art school, and me realizing that going to art school was a privilege, that even seeing artwork is a privilege, and then going back and seeing how my parents experience, like what the struggles they went through. Like they worked pretty much 12 hours a day, almost 6 days a week. You know, like not everybody could go to an art museum. So I always, like, once I realized that the things that my parents did, like even the way I act comes from them sometimes. Like I catch myself doing things I don't like just having a weird grunt. It's like, oh, I'm sounding like my dad. That's horrible. But you start realizing that if it wasn't for your parents, you wouldn't be where you're at. And I told myself in art school that my work would be for my family and the people that remind me of them. Like, if you look at my artwork and you see a roofer, there's my dad. Even though that's not physically him, or that's not painting of him, sometimes I even turn them on their backs so that their face is blurred, so that I could show people like what I'm really looking at. Like I'm looking at my dad's actions, like his struggle. Because I often think that we all struggle, but we all struggle differently. And I feel like the way they struggled, I almost feel guilty that I don't have to work as hard. So in doing so, I put all that hard work that I think that would be needed to work as hard into my artwork. Like, if you look at my artwork, it's very layered, very thick. I'm not trying to be realistic. It's more about capturing that energy that they had working hard. And when it comes to topics like the Pursuit series, the truck series I did with you guys, that was about their pursuit. That was about the load they carried. That was about the me being reminded that although I can't find the job I want, they struggled like so much harder. And sometimes I feel like I don't know what I'm doing with my work. I have to just put it on my back and keep going. But there are the reasons why I make work. And even to this day, when I make a next series, like I'm currently making a series about what home is. And what's crazy is that this happened while the quarantine was happening. So now you can look at my work and be like, is it about quarantine? It's like, no, I've been making work about the home or about the essential worker. Like my subject has never changed. And I feel like that's always what's going to be my reason for making art, is looking into my history, which is looking into my parents and trying to learn off their strengths, you know, not necessarily their weaknesses, but their strengths and what they did to give me a better life. And I feel like going to art school and dealing with, I'm not going to say a lot of racism, but I feel like you have to kind of bite your tongue sometimes when you go to institutions or come from art school. Because I always say this, but I had one professor who told me my work was too Mexican. And it was just for me doing a cityscape and because it was colorful. Like, I'm like, how is that Mexican? But I feel like we have to, like I said, sometimes we feel like we have to like muddy our colors more or abstract them more just to make them seen. And I mean,
thank you so much for sharing that, Adrian. And no, totally. I mean, we've experienced that. It seems like all of the other artists, I see that Cristal Galindo is chiming in saying same. And this is a conversation that has come, or this is a topic that has come up with all of these conversations in the Beyond the Screen series, where folks are having this experience of having their work be too ethnic, whatever that means, right? And media also shared a similar experience. So so yeah, like, you know, it's yeah, Arlene is Spanish and the same, right? So it's very common, you know, and it's just like, what do we have to do, like blend down the work um, in terms of color, or like for it to not be ethnic or whatever it may be, you know? So anyway, thank you for sharing that experience.
And I was actually going to ask you about your your experience as a young painter and selling your first painting ever, and what that experience was like. Just to switch it up a little bit in terms of like being a painter, selling your first painting. Like, you're not supposed to sell your painting until you're dead, pretty much. I mean, that's kind of like the narrative that we have from our history, right? That artists become famous after they die.
Yeah.
But we know that our communities need images that we're producing, and folks need these images, right? Like, what was that experience like for you?
Oh wow, like to be honest, it felt like a breakup. Like I feel like I always had professors tell me that you're not a real artist until you start selling your artwork, and I don't think that's necessarily true. But I know that when you first start selling artwork, it's really hard, and you don't want to let go. But as you make more artwork, it's almost a relief. Like, please take it away from me. I've been staring at this too long. But you also don't want to give your work away. You want to make sure that it's valued. Like, I've had sellers tell me, how low can this go? And I'm just like, do you really want it to be worth how much you pay? Because if you pay me that much, the value of the work isn't that high. And I have a standard now. Like, I mean, I'm not going to talk about how I price things, but I feel like it's a lot easier to sell work. Like, I feel like like I said, like when you first start selling artwork, it's hard, and as you make more artwork, it's almost like a reason to make more artwork. And I feel like I think I recently sold the Yo painting in LA. That painting, and that was kind of heartbreaking, but at the same time, it's like, all right, now I got to make a new masterpiece. Now I got to make something to top this. And then I started reading books and starting to do more research and trying to really think of like what I did right in that painting, what I did wrong, and try to bring it into the next painting. And I feel like that's what art is for me. It's very much a knowing how to critique yourself, because I think that's what I learned in art school. I know sometimes people ask you like, what's the point of going to art school? And for me, it was about knowing how to talk about your artwork. You could teach yourself how to make artwork at home, but I feel like having conversation is something that you need people around, and you need community, and you need school, and you need to be challenged, whether it's your wife or, you know, people, artists. You know, so for me now it's amazing. And I mean, there's works that I do that are really big now that I won't make more of them unless I sell them or I get asked to show them. I recently did like some window paintings, and I love them, but I'm waiting for a space to hold them so I can make more. And that's one thing about the quarantine that's pretty scary for me, as you know, being a creator, is how is this going to change the gallery scene? How is it going to change the way we show work? Because me personally, I don't use Facebook or Instagram as a way to show my work. I show it more as a way to show my process and show where my next work show is. Because for me, showing artwork or going to an art show is an experience. It's not just paint on canvas. It's an experience. Whether it's the way, I feel like being an art handler, I think a lot about how things are installed in the space, and how that, and you walking in that space totally gives you emotion or makes you feel. Because I know at your shows, we've had people cry.
Every single one.
So, I mean, that's a lot of thought too. And that's something that I think a lot now, you know, but yeah, I could go on. So
no, thank you. One of the things that resonated, and that's also been a theme in previous conversations with other artists, is that like when do folks take on this label of being an artist? And you know, you mentioned that in school, oftentimes it's reiterated that it's when you start to sell work, right? And that's at different points for some artists, right? Some artists sell work at really early on in their career. Some artists later on in their career. Like I know that you talked about your first breakup with your piece. Was it around that time that you also started taking on this label as an artist, or like what was taking on an artist label? Like, what was that like for you? When did that happen? Was it early in your career? Was it like, yeah, when did you start like really like being like, I'm an artist, y soy chingón, and I got this?
Uh, I think it's when you realize that making art is essential as breathing. Um, I know that
Powerful.
for me, uh, I've been to scenarios where I stopped making artwork for maybe a month or two, and I feel almost empty, as if like part of me's missing. And I feel like you really become an artist where you know that you can't stop doing it, and if you stop doing it, then you're not happy, and you feel empty. Like there's it's I feel like it's not something you do, it's something you are. And I feel like the term artist gets thrown really lightly. Like I've heard people say, "I'm an artist," and they don't make artwork, or they're not poets. They just say it as a way to say they're something. And I feel like it's an action. Like you have to. I try to break the stereotype by always making artwork and showing like, no, not artists, not all artists are lazy. Not all of us are starving. Like I have a mortgage to pay. I work full time, and I'm still considering myself an artist because I think about it every day.
Thank you. Thank you. And that's actually a really great transitioning point, because one of the things that we did want to talk about is, yeah, that you do still have a job outside of your private practice, your art practice. But at the same time, like, you are not this starving artist, right? Like, you do have a mortgage, and you were able to purchase a house, and you do have a familia, and like, like there's this whole mentality around, there's this like romanticization of the artist, right? That's, I think, detached from the self, or from, from the human, and that there's two ends of the spectrum. You're either a starving artist, or you're a thriving artist and you're rich. Like, there's no in middle ground, there's no in between, right? And it's just like, no, there is that in between of like, yeah, like you do have another job. And I think that the ultimate goal, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that you are able to eventually just work and survive and thrive from just your personal work. But you do have a mortgage, and you are married and have a familia, and you are not starving, and you're also not the rich famous artist Frida Kahlo in the life, right? But that stereotype also needs to be broken. Do you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Uh, well, I feel like when it comes to what my dream was as a kid, I feel like as a kid, you're like, I want to be a famous artist. I want to make millions and be in all these galleries and go to art school and be like Salvador Dali, or I don't know. Like there's always that kind of like, I want to be the best. But in reality, like I feel like I left art school and I was happy just knowing I could make artwork every day. I was happy knowing that maybe I could sell an art piece every month. Like if I could at least knowing that my work is valued and that it has a space, and that I could, not be famous and still make artwork, because most people don't they can't just like drop everything and be full-time artists. Like the realism is that you have to pay bills. And I mean, I don't want my wife to be the one paying for everything. Like that's the thing. And because of that, I changed the way that I sleep, and I changed my schedule, and I have to actually work out in order to have energy. So I feel like there's a balance to it. And at least for me, I've used my full-time job as a way to get material and to have a way to make more artwork, because I just go to work and come back and I have like 5 sketches or 1 doodle, and I have something to do the next day. Like it's not like I feel like becoming a full-time artist, unless you're really privileged with the opportunities to be locked in the studio all day and being quarantined, I don't think it's realistic.
Yeah, with some inheritance from rich parents or something, right? No,
Yeah.
definitely.
I mean, and then you start talking about like the disconnection that happens when you're in the studio all day versus like someone that's engaged with their community and with the folks that you're depicting in your work. Like there's a difference in the way that it comes out in the work. Yeah. And how important it is for you to have that connection, for it to like transfer over to the viewer, right? Like it's important energy that artists have, and the power that you have by creating these images, right? That you said don't exist in these spaces, and why it's important to create these images for these spaces.
Definitely. Yeah. Like it's different to have your PhD in farm working and then step on the field to do your research versus, you know, coming from a first generation immigrant family whose parents are farm workers or who, you know, like, yeah, it's so different. Yeah. Adrian, who are your influences? Like, who do you look up to as inspiration, whether they're artists themselves or whether they're not? Like, what drives you? Who drives you?
I feel like I'm at a point of my career where I'm working with those people who inspire me. Like, I feel like maybe 10 years ago, like I could mention people I've never met, but it's to the point now where I'm working alongside those people, those artists that inspire me. I don't want to, I feel kind of scared to say like one artist and two artists and leave people out.
Yeah.
But I'm at a point where I work along these artists and I see them every day and they are human. And, you know, I feel like sometimes they say they're inspired by me and I'm just kind of like, no, that's not how it works.
No.
But I feel like when it comes to artists I'm currently looking at that's been inspiring me and I've been learning more, I recommend looking at Carlos Olimer's work. Have you seen his work? I mean, as an artist that most people, like, unless you are from LA or you've been to the LACMA, I don't think a lot of people know about his work. But I feel like that's one artist I can just speak out of my head that I've been researching, because I'm one of those people that if I get obsessed with an artist, I'll like Google who they are. I'll look at every image. I'll try to see like the way they lived and how they struggled and how that went into their artwork. I feel like Van Gogh is not the only artist who has made emotional artwork. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
No, thank you so much.
What was I going to ask? I forgot my question. I'm all going through my Rolodex trying to think of the question I was going to ask you. But.
On your social media, Adrian, like you're a busy bee. Like you have an at-home studio. Clearly, you're there, and you know it's just like it seems. And I don't know what your process is like, and maybe you want to share a little bit about your process. But it seems like you work so fast. It seems like you're I mean, you're a freaking hard worker. You're producing all of the time. You're in your studio, it seems like daily. Like, do you mind talking about like do you work fast? Are you working on multiple pieces at once in multiple series? Just because from your social media presence, it seems like your studio is just full of just creative energy. There's pieces everywhere.
I mean, that's one of the reasons why I work so fast is because I do work full time, and I have this kind of like thing where I have to make this amount of work within this amount of time, and I usually work on like 6 pieces at once because I have to like distract myself because I know that I could easily overwork a piece, and I like to think of myself as somebody who works fast but edits slow. Like I could go back to a piece 3 months later and just repaint the background. But I feel like, at least for me, like like I've said, is I often feel like I have to push out more work and push harder because I feel like there's so much competition out there. And I feel like one thing that I hear is like, how are you going to be an artist if there's so many people trying to be an artist? It's like, well, I just got to work harder, right? Or work as fast as they do, or just be in the studio, you know, just try to push harder, because I feel like I'm always trying to really, I feel like I'm on a time limit. Like, I don't know if it's because I'm scared of death or because I'm scared that I'm never going to make enough work. Because I'm a big believer that quantity makes quality. So if I could make as much work as I can, then there's going to be a good amount of really good work. So,
I mean, as an artist, like I'm hearing you and I'm just like, I'm feeling like, oh my gosh, like you work so fast, and as you know, and as someone who also I feel like works fast, like I'm like I could never keep up with Adrian because you're always like so like do you find that like it like what I know that you said you work out to like be able to keep like this creative energy going, like do you like does that ever, you know, with, and this is a conversation we've had with other with that's come up a lot too with like social media, do you like find that it can either have a really positive experience or a really negative experience because you are producing work so quickly that some pieces get a ton of love and some pieces may not get some love, and like does it become almost like a chase to create like this next masterpiece, like you'd mentioned earlier, like like what, I guess, how does that impact your mental emotional well-being, with like having to chase this next masterpiece?
Well, in I feel like humans aren't perfect. I feel like I'm not perfect, and artists aren't perfect. So I should always expect to make bad work, and I should be able to acknowledge that 1 out of 5 of my pieces are going to be amazing, and the rest of them are either going to be okay or just studies. Although I consider all my work to be studies because it is a study of the human, the way humans work and the human struggle, right? So at least for me, like I have acknowledged that we're not perfect, that I can't make perfect pieces every day, that I can't, that if I overpaint something or make a horrible piece, it's just part of my process. So I have to, that's why I feel like I have to make a lot of it because I know that it's not all going to be great. And I feel like even within my social media, like you'll notice that I rarely ever take photos of one piece. It's like 5 pieces in one frame, and it's because I don't know what's good yet. Like I feel like sometimes you need to sit on it to know whether it's amazing or whether it's bad, because sometimes it just needs time to breathe. And I feel like right now one of the struggles I'm having because I'm in my studio like 6 days a week is that I can't walk away from my work. So I feel like I don't know what's working and what isn't. I don't know if I should work on something longer. So I've been giving myself time limits now. Like I'm just telling myself, okay, 1 or 2 pieces a week, turn it around on the wall, and then come back to it in a month. Because it's new to me. Like I've never been in a studio so long, and I've been doing a lot of reading. I've been even trying to reach out to more artists that I often don't talk to as much, and trying to really build connections and my networks a little bit more. I feel like that's something that social media is great for. Like I think that's the positive of it, is that you could use it as a tool to really connect and find new spaces and find new artists and to really like connect with people, because I feel like it's not something that I don't always have time. And then when I get home and I'm exhausted, like I don't know if I'm ready to talk to people. And now I feel like I'm looking for more human interaction. So
That's funny. And because you do have an at-home studio, Adrian, and you do work within the art, I guess, field, like what can we know? How do we like what activities do you engage in? What do you do for fun? Like what do you do when you're not creating art? Because it seems like art is like 99% of your life. Where do we get that other 1% sliver?
I guess like that kind of has to do with like what I don't show on social media. Like lately I've been doing a lot of puzzles. like there's Karen saying all he does is create art. Yep. I'm like this. I'm like reading the comments as I'm talking. But I feel like I'm a big 90s movies nerd. Like I love 90s Adam Sandler movies, and I love really bad. Like I feel like lately I've been really into watching really like dating shows for some reason, and I feel like it's the most dumbest thing you could watch. But because you watch it, you disconnect from overstimulation in the studio. Like I think me and my wife binged Love Is Blind, and as I were watching it, it was like, this is so bad, but why am I watching this? It's like because it's something just to not think of, because being in a studio is a lot of thoughts, and I feel like often you don't have you don't have time to disconnect, and you need to like for me, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Like I even like the new stuff. Like I don't really care whether I don't try to over critique those things. I just try to enjoy them for what they are. And I don't know, like there's just I'm a nerd. Like when it comes down to it, I know people see me as kind of like a bro when they first see me. Like not a bro.
No, thank you. And after you watched Love Is Blind, did you start talking in baby voice? Just kidding.
Oh. You know what? Yeah. That was the first thing I pointed out. I was like, why does she do that? Like, I hate when people do that.
No, I'm totally kidding. No, but it's nice, you know. One of our goals, and this is something we've shared with you because again, you've exhibited with us both as a solo artist as well as in a group show. That you know, one of the goals that we have at El Comalito Collective is to make the artist accessible. Because again, like, you know, one story that we always like to share with folks is that even when we first opened, like we're both artists, we've had art exhibits ourselves, and sometimes our parents don't want to go, right? Because they're like, what do I wear? Like, what do I do? What if someone tries to talk to me as someone who has monolingual parents? Like, they're just uncomfortable in like this white cube environment, right? And I know that one of your goals is that your work is representing these folks, right? This is what your work is for, to make them feel more comfortable. And so when we had our very first show, our parents were like, didn't want to come even to our own gallery because of past experiences they've had at other galleries. And you know, so we always try and make the artist accessible so that folks do feel connected to the artist, because there is this romantic version of the artist, and then there's this human version of the artist, which is, you know, what I think is beautiful about these interviews, porque like, you know, folks are who may only know you via social media are getting to know Adrian is like, okay, he's a cool dude. He's human. So thank you so much for being accessible in this way. Do you find that you know, during your artist talks, or like, is like, I guess, how am I trying to frame my question is, do you find that over the course of the years with your following that you have seen like more brown and black folks and folks who don't typically attend white cube spaces? Do you find that you have more and more folks following and showing up to your art shows? Just because the subject matter is so different, right? Like we talk about, I'm trying not to name, I'm trying to be good and not get in trouble and name galleries. But
I can start, and if you want to add more.
Yeah. Next question. I take back my question. No, I take back. No. I guess where I was going with this was, you know, like, and I remember when we were talking on the phone the other day, we were having a conversation around. I'm reading your wife's comment, and I'm just like, she's probably over there going like, I have bad game.
This is all new experience.
Sorry, Karen.
Used to this life stuff.
No, sorry, Karen. No, you know, but like we talk about like what responsibility, you know, and I guess my question was more geared towards, it's hard as artists of color, because, you know, we often don't get invited into white cube spaces, but when we do get invited, it's important that we reclaim those spaces. Yeah. So when we are reclaiming those spaces, like what responsibility does community have to like show up to these spaces, even though these spaces are not intended for them? But I guess, how do we change and how do we reclaim spaces, right? I know that that's one of the reasons that we love showing your work, is because when people do walk into this space and your work is hanging on the wall, they immediately see themselves represented and they feel more comfortable. Like, have you been in a space or exhibited in a space where that has not happened because the crowd is just not who it's for, right?
Yeah, well, for me, I really put a lot of thought into like not only who am I showing with, but who's hanging my artwork and what space that is and why they want to show my work. And for me, I think of galleries as cathedrals to artists. I feel like it's a place for us to feel like this is where we're being honored. This is where our work is being taken in, and I see the gallery as kind of like a temple, right? And it's a place where sometimes our work looks better than it does in a studio, and sometimes it looks worse. And I've been through shows that have shown 30 artists, and I can't even find my work. And I've been to spaces that only show five artists, and I'm talking more about the other artists than my own work. so I am a lot more pickier about where I show. Like, I feel like when I first started, I was happy just showing at a bar, and now I would rather show at I would rather show once a year than show every week. And I feel like there's you have to value yourself, and that's kind of part of showing work. And knowing how the conversation is told within these spaces that hold our artwork, and whether it's going to honor us or make it seem like we're just there to decorate the walls.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm processing kind of what you're saying, like where like it can be a very blurry line, right? Where like, is art decoration, or does it serve a higher purpose? And what is that line? Where is that line, right? And we talk about this a lot in El Comalito, like aesthetic versus impact, right? Like, yes, like beautiful landscapes of sunflowers are beautiful, especially if you're a classically trained painter. But like, is there a sense of urgency there? How does that impact our community? Why is it being done? So like, where is the decorative component to art versus like the impact component to art, right? And like, obviously, like, you know, you are very intentional with the work that you create. You're very intentional with what you're showing. So thank you we're honored that you've chosen to show with us in the past. And so I think that's an important conversation to have, right? Aesthetic versus impact, and the intention with why the work was created, where the work is going to show, who's the work going to show, or who is the work for, right? And then that'll help guide, you know, what spaces you're going to collaborate with, and what spaces you're not. So,
and another thing I want to add on is that sometimes you want to be shown in these like contemporary spaces, or like, you know, galleries that show you know, abstract art, but you also don't want to be put there as kind of like, oh yeah, we got some diversity in this show. You know, like you want you want to fit in, like you wanted to have purpose, and you wanted to have value, and you, like I said, like you look for spaces that honor your work more than you do, and you want them to take care of it. You know, like I know that I work at a space where I gotta wear gloves every time I handle artwork, and part of me is like, I gotta treat this work better than I treat my own work. You know.
That's a real thing, because as artists, like, we are like, okay, just pick it up and throw it up, lean it against the wall, whatever. But then when we're working with other people's work, we're like, don't break it, don't touch it. And I mean, as gallerists and as art handlers ourselves, like, we know that kind of struggle. Also, like, what does it mean to damage someone else's work versus damage your own work, right? Like, I can fix my own work, but I can't fix your work.
For me, the scratch becomes part of their artwork. It's like, now it looks better.
Well, as we start to wrap up today, Adrian, like, what message do you have for like what do you want folks to know about you? How can folks support your work? Like, what do folks who only follow you on social media maybe not know about you? Like, let's leave our followers with a fun fact about Adrian Delgado.
I'm actually, I don't know how it's going to be after this pandemic, but I used to be the type of person that if you wanted to have coffee and just talk, I'll be happy to. Like, I feel like inspiration comes from everybody and everything. It's not just other people who inspire me. Like, I get inspired just by seeing somebody work, digging a hole. So, I mean, like, I feel like people need to know that I'm not making artwork in order to like make money. I'm making it more to be remembered. And I feel like in order to be remembered, people need to acknowledge that them sharing your artwork, them asking you about, oh, do you have any prints for sale? when's your next show? Can you write my email down and tell me when your next show is? I really want to go. Or even them going, oh, I have this gallery space that I know of that I go to all the time. Here's their email or here's their website. Check it out. Like little things like that help us out. And I feel like I said, like, I don't know how the gallery scene or how the art scene is going to be. And I'm scared because I don't use Instagram or Facebook as the way to show my artwork. My work's meant to be experienced in person. And I know you guys could talk about this, but when you look at artwork in a photo on the screen and look at it in person, like what are the differences? Like, and seeing them in a space where they could surround you and engulf you. But I feel like my followers, I don't like calling them followers, or people who see my artwork or see it every day. I feel like we love when you guys share our artwork. We love when you just put a heart in our comments. Like we love seeing that, and maybe we're not able to always reply back, but it means a lot. And a lot of artists need that as a reason to make artwork, because a lot of us, when we finish art school or when we make artwork for our lives and get older, most of us quit. And we quit because we don't feel valued. And I think we need like to be honest, I have plenty of people in my life that will tell me that looks horrible. And I have my mom and my dad who say everything's great, but we need complete strangers. We need complete strangers to tell us that we're doing okay. Because I feel like when you know someone's art, like I know I could see an artist, and for me everything I do is great. But when you first see them, like you need those people who share your artwork or are able to buy a print or inspire you, right? Or just anything. Like we need that. Like that's part of making artwork, and we need honesty. Like we need people who say that piece you did was great. And I mean, unless you guys want to add more, I don't know how to go from there.
No, thank you. No, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that it is important. You know, I think that again, you know, there's like this romanticized a stereotype of an artist, right, or the celebrity artist, where it's just like, no, we need honest feedback. We also need love, you know, like I know that I go through this journey where I post something and it doesn't get love, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this piece really, like, was this piece really that bad? Yeah. It was my favorite. Sometimes even like, and it's crazy how this works, because sometimes the pieces that I create, the ones that I'm least attracted to are the ones that get the most love, and the ones that I'm most attracted to oftentimes get the least amount of love. And I think that, like, yeah, like it is important because we are human, and it is important to get that validation, because, you know, we are, I think that what people don't understand, I'm overgeneralizing, what a lot of people don't understand is the amount of emotional labor that goes into creating work, right? Like you're in that studio for 10-hour sittings sometimes. Like you're in that studio and the subject matter can be heavy. And even though the final piece or the process piece that's posted on social media or websites or wherever it is that your folks are posting, you're seeing like a really beautiful image. And I guess that's where like the aesthetic component comes out, because it's like you paint beautifully, but again, like you also work hard. Like this is not something that you just woke up to and like raw talent and you could just pick up a paintbrush and voila. Like no, like so much work went into that. So like it's also nice to get the validation of like, yeah, like I put 40 hours into this piece, you know? It's work, yeah.
10 likes.
Right, 10 likes, 40 hours, 10 likes. And it's not so much about the likes, but it's about like, okay, people are seeing that there is emotional labor, that there is just labor in general, that there's many hours that go into this work.
That there's a connection and a resonance too, right? Like that someone is looking at this image and somehow like they see this themselves being reflected within the work, whether it's through association or a memory. Like it is important for people to see things that resemble you. Right.
And as like, and you know, we're on Instagram now. So as we're talking about Instagram, right? Like you're just scrolling up, like how many seconds, like I just think about this because this came up in another conversation as well, where like you say, let's say you spent 40 hours on a piece, like how many seconds versus like seconds, what's the hour to second ratio that actually went into the work that someone just scrolled up, right? Like someone saw a 40-hour piece for literally 0.3 seconds before scrolling next to the next or onto the next image. And like, that's so like mind blowing, right? Like that, like all you need to do is just go boop and it's gone. It's like gone.
Like, do I have to make art about like pop culture items or topics to be liked a lot? I mean, it's not even about likes, to be honest. Like, I don't know why I'm talking about likes a lot, but I think it's more about I guess knowing your work is valued, right? I think that's the thing. Like, I think saying I want a lot of likes, it's not even about that. It's about connecting with people the most, right? And when you have those opening shows or those receptions that people come up to you and they'd be like, I saw your work on Instagram. I had to see it in person. Wow. You know, like I get that a lot. And I feel like, okay, maybe I am doing a good job documenting how I work. Cause like I said, like I show my process on my social media, not my work. And I don't even show photos of finished work until after it's been showing. You know, like until it's been on the wall, because I don't want people to feel like, well, I saw it on your social media, so I don't have to see it in person, and that's not my thing. Is I'm trying to sell you to go see it, not to like my work on my Instagram.
Yeah, and that's very real too, right? Like your worth is not valued, or your value is not, or what is it? Your worth is not measured by the amount of likes or followers that you have, by no means, right? But at the same time, like, you know, we do have an extended virtual community and an extended virtual family. And it is, you know, when you work so hard on something at the same time, it's also nice to see that you are seen, right? And it's also nice to be validated for the labor that you're putting into this work. So yeah, I don't know how we got into like this social media, and like the again, it's like this roller coaster, right? It allows us to make these connections with artists, like you'd mentioned earlier, that you normally would not have had the opportunity to connect with. But at the same time, like, it can also impact our mental, emotional well-being, because
mostly now, because we're pretty much on social media in our homes all day.
Yeah, and honestly, prior to the pandemic, I mean, folks are attached to their phones. And I mean, in different ways. I don't want to compare the two, but yeah, I mean, folks you have a computer at your like, you have the ability to be on your phone, which is essentially a computer at any given time during the day. The world that we live in, you know. So no, but thank you so much, Adrian, for just your honest conversation, just being real, you know, and allowing us to peek into your life for the last hour or so. We really appreciate it. We've had the honor of working with you in the past. We hope to continue to work with you in the future. Thank you for using your platform and your voice, or thank you for using your voice on all of the platforms that you have, social media, your art shows. We've had the privilege of hosting as well as attending shows where you've gotten to speak about your work, and it's always so inspiring and motivating. If you know, once this is over, if you have a space to exhibit Adrian's work, we invite you to do so. If you have the opportunity to visit Adrian's shows, wherever it is that he shows next, we invite you to do so. Thank you, Adrian, for being with us today. And yeah, hasta pronto. We see you, we love you, we appreciate you. And until next time.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Adios.